Hey, everybody. Charles Szczepanek. Welcome back to Pianist Academy. Good to see many of you here. Welcome, Jess, Antonio, Lori, Pianist 2011. Welcome back. Good to see you. And Nancy, hello, C Drive. Hey, C Drive said hit the like button on your way in. Thanks for that, C Drive. I appreciate that. Is Isabelle here? We have a first-time submission from Isabelle, so I'm excited to share that with everybody. And yeah, how's life? How's practice? What are y'all working on since last time we got together? If you haven't seen already on the, it's kind of on the channel, but it's my collabs with ABRSM. There are two that are out. They live over on ABRSM's channel, so I don't know if you can see them on Pianist Academy, but they're out and they're kind of cool. Did any of you that are here, did you see those? Hey, Isabelle. The first one was on making ugly sounds at the piano in composition. And the second one that just came out, I think last week, was a video that shows kind of my live process writing to a prompt I was given by some of their students composing. So yeah, those are cool. If you haven't gotten to check them out, check them out. Good. Well, hey, I haven't heard anything other than from Isabelle. How's everybody doing? Hopefully good. Hopefully practice is going well. Hello, Ted. We're going to have a nice time listening to Isabelle play some Grieg for us today. So why don't we just jump into that? We'll listen to Isabelle playing some Grieg. This is from Lyric Pieces, Opus 12, number 2. It's a waltz. And we'll go from there. And then after we finish up, the rest of the session will be usual question and answer time for everything. Okay. Jess, you say it's going to be hot all week here. Yeah. If you're, I live in Colorado. If you keep track of some of the weather and environmental stuff that's going on, we've got some really massive wildfires that are happening here. There's one not that far away from me, about 100 miles away, that's close to 100,000 acres that isn't yet very contained. So we're hoping we get some rain and have less wind. So Pianist, you say you're so happy. I'm happy to see you. And Nancy, practice is not happening. You've been busy creating new drapes. Well, hey, that's still kind of a creative thing, isn't it? Hey, Broadway guy. Hey. Okay, I've got Isabelle's performance for us queued up. So this is some Grieg played by Isabelle. All right. Lovely job, Isabelle. Let's give a round of applause for Isabelle. Thanks so much for sending that in. Oh, Isabelle sent me an email. And let's see, we've got some questions, and she mentioned a couple things. So let's see. You said that, yeah, hey, Vienna. Welcome back. Haven't seen you in a long time. And Lewis, thanks, Lewis, for that comment. Let's see. So Isabelle, you said you worked on this last autumn, and then you put it away for a bit, and maybe you're bringing it back. Hey, Bjorn. And okay, we've got maybe two big questions, two, maybe three. One's about tempo. You asked, there's a problem of tempo. When you play by yourself, the tempo goes up and down, you say. When you play with the metronome, it's a mess. Even slowly. Okay. Isabelle, the recording that you sent over, what did you think of the tempo? And what did you think of your consistency across your performance this time? Why don't we let Isabelle respond first? And then I'd like to hear others' opinions of the same thing. So while Isabelle writes that, tempo is one thing we're going to listen a little bit for. And then there's a very in-depth question about pedaling that we're going to have a great time talking about. So, Isabelle's probably typing something up. Those of you that are here listening, what did you think of Isabelle's tempo? Did it seem, and I don't mean was it fast or was it slow or how did it fit? I mean, was it consistent across the performance? Isabelle, okay, you said tempo moves up and down. What do the rest of you think? Vienna. Okay, well, that's honest. You don't know because you came in right as the performance ended. We could take a quick listen to part of it again. Let's see if anybody else has something. You know, and you could say you didn't hear anything about the tempo. Anything, there's nothing to comment on. That would be a valid comment. Broadway guy. Well, that's an interesting comment. You say you don't know the piece well enough to know what's correct and what's not correct. I would venture to say you don't need to know the piece at all to comment on tempo. Did you feel the pulse consistently or not when you listened? Laurie says, at least in the main section, it was not bad at all. Vienna, yeah, the tempo was good, I think. Good? Okay. Isabelle, for the most part, your tempo was very consistent across the performance. There were two places where it got a little bit out of hand. But if we go through the piece, at a Broadway guy, you say the first part seemed very secure, and then as the piece moved on, it started to slow down. Yeah. And I'm attributing that, I'm not attributing the slowing down, in this case, Isabelle, to not being aware of the tempo. I'm more attributing it to the increased difficulty when the melody gets put in the left hand and the grace notes that we have. So, we take a look at some of the music. Your whole A section here, Isabelle, was all very good. It was very consistent, all the way down to the end of my page. When we turn the page and we get into the A major section, this wasn't quite as consistent. It was just slower, but slower than the first page, but you kept it in the same tempo from measure 37 to 52. That's good. Okay, when we got back into measure 53, where the main theme returns, it's right here. You went straight back to the tempo you know and love. That's very good. Okay, the only problems with tempo that I heard were at the very end. 66, when we came back to this motif. Those 3 bars in particular, so that's 66 starting here, and going forward, we lost a little bit of the last beat of each of these bars. However, that didn't happen the first time around on the first page. That means it's probably just a matter of be aware of the hold at the end of each of those motifs and be just as focused on it as you were the first time that you played it on the first page. 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I know you can do it because you did it for us at the beginning. So that, I think, is just cueing in our focus at the end of the piece after we've played for a couple minutes and coming back and saying, oh, these measures in particular, I'm speeding up. Let's really focus on those and making sure I count through beats 2 and 3. And then the coda. What you did, Isabelle, was a really, really dramatic slowdown. And I do think the coda wants to be played a little bit more slowly. It doesn't have a tempo change marked. But it is this really nice, delicate, almost pastoral conclusion, at least until the last bar, or the last 3 bars there. Okay, so I do think, Isabelle, you made a good choice in slowing it down. It seemed like a character choice, not an accident, but maybe we don't want to go as far. So, all that said, Isabelle, I don't think tempo maybe is as big of as an issue as you might be thinking it is. And in fact, I don't know who you've been listening to play this piece, but there's quite a lot of variation of tempo within phrase when you listen to recordings of this. And we're going to even talk about that a little bit as we go further into the piece today. But there's some ways we can use some rubato to show a little bit more character through the piece, which is going to be departing from tempo. So, Isabelle, I think congratulations are in order because I think, to me, it seems like after just hearing you once, you have focused a lot on tempo and on keeping a consistent tempo, and it's paid off. And there are only a few places that you might want to look at to address and make sure that they're still just as consistent as everything else. Okay, let me tackle your other question in your email, and then we're going to get into some more details. And for this one, we're going to do a big discussion with everybody here. So, Isabelle, you said that your teacher says no pedal until a piece is perfectly known. Only then, at the very end of the process, can we introduce the pedal. Okay, let's talk about that as a group. Let's just talk about what are pros and cons of using pedal in practice. Let's start there, and we're going to get more and more detailed as we go. So, Dith, you said, oh, right off the bat, seems like a bad idea. Oh, absolutely. My pleasure, Isabelle. Lori said, we all know Charles's opinion about that. Well, I hope you do, Lori, because you've been around the channel for a bit. Faze, you said, clearing pedal is just as hard as knowing the piece. Okay, yeah, there's some merit to that. Okay, what are some more things? Let's start with what are some bad reasons? What are some reasons to not use pedal? How does pedal convolute our learning process, perhaps? Yeah. What can it? Why could it possibly be bad? And Jess, you said, wouldn't trying to use the pedal from the start help with understanding it? We'll come back to that, Jess. Vienna, you said, like making it seem dry or not connected. Well, Well, that would be, I think that would be a bad, that's a reason to use pedal, not to not use pedal. Because we want to show connection, right? Dith, you said pedal can cover up mistakes. Yeah, Lori, you said almost the same thing. Pedal can hide mistakes in our playing. I think that's pretty common knowledge for lots of students of piano. And that's maybe the primary reason why a lot of teachers recommend no pedal. No pedal can cover up potential problems. Isabelle, you said pedal adds difficulty. Pedal does add a layer of complexity. Yeah. It's another thing we have to coordinate. So, yeah, if it's difficult to coordinate learning the notes and the rhythms and hearing all of that, and then we have to add a foot into the process as well, that adds more difficulty. Nancy, pedal can blur the sound while you're trying to learn the notes. Yes. Zayday, hey. Pedal makes for lazy fingering and bad legato playing. That's a pretty harsh statement, Zayday. But that's part of the reason why a lot of teachers say don't use the pedal in practice. Okay. Let's flip it around. Those were a lot of good answers. If you have something else to add, please chime in and type it in the chat. But what about taking the opposite approach and saying, well, if we do add pedal right from the first day, what is really good about adding pedal right from the first day? I think this is the harder question because a lot of teachers, I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here. I think as a teacher, the lazy way out of teaching is to say, don't play with pedal. There are good reasons, like all the ones we just discussed, to not have pedal in our practice, at least at times. But saying no pedal at all, there are so many things. There's so many things that are going to be more difficult later in the process. We're going to dive into those. Vienna, you said, it sounds good. Let's make that let's make that a little bit more descriptive. Instead of just it sounds good, when we add pedal to our playing, the sound changes from two-dimensional, flat, to three-dimensional. It gains a lot more resonance. That's part of the reason it sounds good, is because we use the entire instrument on every note that we play. Phase, you said the 3 will feel better. Do you mean the meter? Like the pulse, the sense of pulse, or the waltz figure? Vienna, you said it's hard to put pedal back in once you're used to it. It can be difficult. Anytime we have to change the coordination of the body, it can be difficult to change the coordination. And the pedal is one of those things. That was the reason why we said we could avoid pedaling at the beginning of the process, because it makes coordination more difficult. However, on the flip side of that, after your hands and fingers are fully coordinated, now we have to add a complexity in later. Well, that could cause everything that we've worked on to get disrupted. And then we have to kind of undo some of the learning process of all the stuff we practiced for months. Isabelle, you said in this recording you used no pedal at all. Can it be heard and can it be noticed that you used no pedal? Yes. It was very clean. That's a really big positive. It was very clean. The other positive I'll say, Isabelle, about your playing is that you did a great job paying attention to the durations of pitches. When things were written to be held, you held them, and you actually did it with the fingers. You have to when you don't have the pedal. And so it's obvious, because there was no pedal, it's obvious that you really studied and understood the rhythm and the score. Not just the rhythm, but the duration of pitch as well. Because sometimes a quarter note may be staccato, and sometimes it is not, right? And also where you need to sustain certain pitches with part of the hand and change other ones. Those were all really good things, and they were really clear. Let's see. Diff, you said, it helps you get a better sense of the musicality of the piece. You know that it helps you to hear harmony changes without having to think of them theoretically or see them on the page. Yep. Absolutely. Bjorn, you say pedal in general is just adding a lovely ambient moment of sensation to a certain part of the piece. Or it depends maybe on the style. I think it's deeper than that, Bjorn. I think it's pedal isn't just we put it on to make it to like put the little finishing touch on or to put the icing on the cake. It's not that. It's deeper than that. Yeah. Nancy, you said your brain has to coordinate both hands, so adding the foot later can be harder. Absolutely. Ted, you say not practicing with the pedal changes the music a lot. Changes how you approach technique. Yes. Yes. Okay. Good. Ted, we're going to dive into... Yeah. You said by technique, you mean like note durations, etc. Yeah. Okay, there's good and there's bad in that point. So we're going to take that further. When we don't use pedal and we have to play something like this piece, let's say we get to, let's just start it from the beginning. We'll go through a handful of bars. We look at bar 1 and bar 2. Okay, we're going to forget that the score says pedal. That's fine. We're going to say no pedal. What is missing? And even with my really large hands, I can do it with my really large hands. But if you don't have a 10th stretch, it's going to sound like this. And what's missing from that the score tells us needs to be included? Yeah, Vienna, you said the slur. It should sound like the first note, the first beat, and the second beat are supposed to be connected. I don't remember how big Grieg's hands were, but you have to have quite a hand span in order to do that without pedal. In fact, you can see here, if I'm actually holding that and playing it without pedal, I have to be able to stretch that entire 10th. Isabelle, I'm fairly certain it is not physically possible for you to do that, which means the only way that you can create the articulation that's printed on the score is to use the pedal. Because you have to jump to beat 2. Okay. That articulation it's everywhere. Across the whole piece. It's all over the place. It's a really important component of the piece. So by not using pedal immediately, right from the beginning, we've trained our ear to not hear the slur and to hear these as basically 3 staccato pitches. Yeah. We have also trained the arm and the wrist, the body, that it's okay to just kind of bounce between all 3, which then further promotes the disconnection of those. However, if we think about the movement we would need to make to play this with no pedal and create the slur, it's down, shift, up, right? Down. And this goes right into what Ted was talking about. This is a change in technique. Now, if we can't reach that and we have to use the pedal, we can still employ the same type of technique. Down, up, up, down, up. In essence, there's kind of a lower wrist circle here to a release instead of up, up, up. And that's all in service of, the technique is in service of this tone. Vienna, yeah, you're coming to a great conclusion. You say, wait, so when you first start a piece, should you practice with both pedal and no pedal? My answer is absolutely yes, but I lean very much in one direction. Okay, let's go a little further. Can we? maybe what about the middle section? Yeah, let's look at these notes. Okay, so what did Grieg write? I don't think the articulation in the right hand here is intended to be, I think it's more supposed to be in the vein of a slur than a staccato or even a portato, the disconnection with a pressing. I really think Grieg wants this to be sustained. And articulated maybe with a slight pulling of the notes or pressing of the notes, which is made possible because they're the same pitch and we have to re-articulate them. We have to play the same key again, right? But I do not think that's supposed to be, right? Not staccato. And even if we were to sustain this more with the hand, well, here in bar 3, we have to release C sharp in the right hand early enough to make room for the C sharp, the same pitch in the left, and then return. That's going to be impossible to not play a true staccato in the right hand if we play without pedal. And if we do that, so listen to the sound here. We also have to let go of the legato connection in the left because the key has to return, and if there's no pedal, the key has to return from that C sharp, right? And if there's no pedal, then there's going to be a break in the legato line in the bottom as well. That bar really tells me this is supposed to be pedaled, probably more heavily than not. Okay, so we have talked about a couple of ways where the pedaling now affects how we approach playing some notes, and it affects especially what we hear when we practice. That's the primary reason that I have all my students add pedal as soon as possible, not as late as possible. And then my job as the teacher is to still make sure that you are aware of all of the places that the pedal needs to be sparse. But I don't want to tell you, as a student, I don't want to say, never use it, because we're closing the door on a whole bunch of ways that we should be listening to the music, a whole bunch of ways we should be reflecting differences in our technical approach. Yeah, so Isabelle, you said, how is it possible to have a slur and staccato at the same time? So like what we have here, this is measure 5. We have a staccato in the right hand and a slur in the left. So we have to hold the bottom pitch long enough to allow the staccato to be released. Now, if you do have the stretch here and can reach a 10th, it's quite easy to play this with little to no pedal and create the staccato and the slur. That's not bad at all. If you do have to pedal to create the slur, the pedal has to come down after the staccato has been released. So after that has done and the pitch has finished ringing, that's when we pedal and we finger sustain the low note until the pedal is engaged. So, like that. Zoom in on that for you. So the staccato finishes, pedals down. It's quite rapid actually, but... And then we'll release the pedal at the end of the slur. So it's a very, very quick movement. It is possible to do that without being able to reach the notes that are there on the score. all in one. But the pedaling is much more complex than if you could just simply play it. Okay. Yeah, Vienna, it is a little complicated. Okay, Isabelle, to your teacher's credit, a great amount of this piece in particular should be played with minimal pedal. There's a little bit of pedal through each of those bars. I use just a touch, but it's really just a touch. If you listen to a lot of recordings of this, you'll hear a lot of actually performers don't even articulate that staccato, that one, because of this. They actually put the pedal down and release here. And same thing in the next bar. They don't play that staccato and they put the pedal down and release here. These are professionals, not students. Because the importance of the slur in the left hand is really great. It ties all of this section together. So we can't play it sometimes and then not others for the sake of an articulation in the right hand. So some performers lean toward, I'll omit the first staccato. Which just change. We get a two-note slur instead. But again, I would rather see that also than have both hands disconnected. Okay. So Isabelle, I was going to say a couple more things. I finished up the first 8, 9, 10 bars playing them, and there was a little bit of pedal through those. But guess what? When we get to the next bars, there's a little pedal there. There's none there. There's none there. And we do pedal at the end of that bar to connect the sustained pitches where the hand has to lift and move to the next. But we can't put the pedal down until we arrive on beat 2. So no pedal, pedal here. And then we can connect to the next bar. Okay. So pedaling in this piece, it's complicated. So your teacher said, the only problem I have with what you wrote is that they have kind of this general rule that pedal never gets added until the end. I really don't agree with that for a great deal of repertoire. But this piece has much less pedal in the performance has much less pedal than pedaled bars. We'll put it that way. So the places where pedal is going to help us out, there are a handful of beats. The places where pedal can totally mess up and blur a performance and make it just awful are everywhere. Ted, if only every printed piece had pedal markings. Oh, I would hate that, Ted. As you learn more and more, the pedal it becomes kind of too complicated to mark on the score. Definitely with the old time markings like the P or the ped marking that's in this score at the beginning, and then you'd get a star, where you're supposed to release. It would be so unclear because there would have to be so many markings in every single bar. So I'm glad we don't have more pedal marks. Isabelle, if you were playing something else, if you were playing something that wasn't kind of as crisp and as dance-like, I would really be encouraging you to use pedal all the time. This piece has its challenges, and it definitely, if you can use pedal to hear that slur like we talked about, do it, because we really want to hear that connection. because Grieg didn't write disconnected. It's supposed to be connected. And if you can use pedal when we get the melody in the left hand, absolutely do it. Yeah? It's still a little enough pedal that I can show the articulations and the slurs that are marked on the page. So there's pedal, but there's a release, but there's pedal there. So the pedal's always doing all kinds of things. The best way to learn pedaling, Isabelle, is to really start experimenting with it. Because you've taken so much time and you not playing with pedal, and you know the clarity of the piece, and you know really what the notes are supposed to be, and your ear can listen to the melody, those would all be reasons to practice without pedal for everyone, right? Because you've spent so much time there, you're going to be especially sensitive to, is it too much pedal? That's good. But I would greatly encourage you to start trying to put it in wherever you can. Okay, my last point about pedal. It kind of relates to the first one. It's about gesture. And we talked about how in order to create this slur, we end up making a certain gesture with the arm and the hand. And that also adds a certain character. When we're playing other bars in this piece, let's go back to these ones that we chatted about. If you truly don't play with any pedal in there, it encourages the body to stay still. So those staccato notes, we of course have to move and release. But here, if we have no pedal, we are encouraged, in order to keep the sound going, to get stuck. And drop and stuck. And then same thing, stuck. When really, the hands should be free to lift and move more quickly and sooner. Isabelle, to your credit, usually when I see students that have a tendency to hold for the entire duration of the printed value on the score, those were half notes in this case, and dotted half notes, what happens is we're very late getting to the next beat. To your credit, you were not late. You were able to hold, release with enough time, shift, move, and play the next thing, and it all stayed in time. But it tends to be a big problem because we get stuck, that then a student holds and sits and then moves and looks, and then a beat or two has gone by, and now we've really lost a great deal of time and tempo. So there's two components to this. If you allow yourself to pedal the end, not only can we shift and make sure that we're right on time for beat one, it also gives you an opportunity to say what you want to say musically with your gesture as well. And when we talk about maybe injecting character or injecting musicality in a piece, I think if we can approach it from two directions, right? We can use a gesture to help us feel or imbue a character or imbue a sense of connection. And we can also try to hear that first and then reflect on it and say, well, based on the connection I'm hearing, what gesture should I use to actually show that physically? Now, ironically, for me at least anyway, the gesture that I come to from both directions ends up being the same. But you can try approaching it from both ways and see if one helps you more than another. However, you can't really start, I don't think you can really start understanding how to be free with the body and express that type of gesture when we are relegated to just sitting on the notes and holding them. You can. You can. We still have to let go, though. But that feeling and allowing yourself to have that freedom in the wrists and let the sustain sing. For me, when I make the gesture, I'm really listening intently to that sound, and I'm saying to myself, this is connection to the next thing. And I can't make the connection unless the pedal goes down. To me, that is a big disconnect when I'm not using pedal, because my gesture says one thing, and then my hands have to lift off the keys, and then my ears and brain go, none of that matches. So it is possible to make those types of gestures with your fingers connected to the keys, but I think it's much more difficult. Vienna, you're very kind. And so, Isabelle, I think pedal, not only is it a great tool to help connect a slur that we might physically not be able to, it's a great tool to help us be more free at the instrument. And the more freedom we allow the playing mechanism, the more difficult, quick, light, the more agility we're going to have, right? Because when we are stuck and we have to keep the fingers in the notes, it's really difficult to be agile. It's one of the reasons studying Bach is so important. Often there is little to no pedal when we play Baroque music, yet we still have to learn agility through that. Yeah? That's great. We're not talking about that yet. So if there are people here and you play more advanced music, then yes, we do have to learn how to be free in both ways. But it's a lot easier, Isabelle, to start if the pedal can help you do some of that work and can help the sound keep going for you. And then you can sing the phrase with the body. I think, phase. I've got a couple of videos on pedal markings. I did kind of maybe 4 or 5 part series. I divided it into, it's one video that I divided into a bunch of other videos in shorts. I used Debussy's Arabesque. First Arabesque. To talk about, just in a couple bars, the utter complexity of what goes on with the fingers and the pedal when they work together the best possible way. So yeah, check that out. I can't remember the title of the video. I will look it up maybe in a few. Okay, Isabelle, yes. If there's one thing that you take away from today, it's start to use the pedal in 2 ways. To add dimension to your tone, to the color of the sound, and to allow yourself more freedom physically. And trust that you know the piece well enough that you know when it's too blurry and you know when you've used too much pedal. Okay. Let's tie this back into a couple of the things that are good for all of us. When you're in your practice, when should you make the decision to not use pedal? Let's say you're playing something and you're working on a specific spot, like 4 bars, a small chunk, like we talk about here. And what is the cue that maybe you need to do the next repetition with no pedal? There are a lot of correct answers. I'm expecting 1 or 2 here. And we'll get into maybe more of some of the deeper answers as well. Going back, Vienna said then, Yeah, but then you can't add your own way of pedaling if you have a score that has pedal markings printed in it. I think it's a lot more difficult to be objective about how you are hearing the piece when pedal markings are given. And very often, there are a few exceptions in composers, but very often pedal markings on a score are not given by the composer, they're given by the editor, and it's one person's interpretation. Chopin, even though he wrote pedal markings in his scores, and they truly are from him, we still need to be careful because the way his instrument sustained with the damper pedal down is different than how the modern piano sustains. So, even though we have pedal markings direct from the composer, the way we use the pedal in order to match the sound Chopin was looking for is often different than what's on the score. So we can be informed by when he writes and says, pedal this, don't pedal this, release here. Okay, we have to kind of imagine what sound does he actually want and why did he make those markings? And today, on our modern piano, we might not literally follow them, but we want to follow the intention, the sound that he wanted us to reproduce. Okay. Hey, Lisa. So, yeah, Vienna. Okay. What you said. Why, when we're practicing, why do we stop and say, I'm going to do the next repetition without pedal? First comment from Vienna is the one I expected to hear first. When it sounds too blurry. So, good. Great. At least we're listening for that. You might be surprised how many times I actually have students who don't even hear that their music is blurry. And so I end up becoming the teacher that I just kind of put down because I say, we have to play with no pedal. But that's because what they're hearing, they're not perceiving what the problem is. And so there's no point in going and saying, well, here are all the great things about pedaling when we haven't heard the really big problem. So we need to learn how to hear what the blur sounds like and why it's bad. Ted, you said you use no pedal when it feels overwhelming to play the correct notes alone. Okay, yep. And rhythm, you say. And I think that's similar to what Isabelle said, not knowing how to play both hands without mistakes. So that comes down to a coordination thing. Is it really difficult to coordinate the two hands? So taking something with no pedal can be a great idea if that coordination's tricky. However, we want to be sure that when we play with no pedal, we're not accidentally changing our technical approach in a way that is contradictory to what we need. That's really hard to do on your own if you don't have a teacher. The only general thing I can say to that point is oftentimes there are legato markings in the score where it is not either physically possible to play legato with the fingers, it's not physically possible to play finger legato, or if it is, it contorts the hand so much to play it that it is a really bad idea to even attempt it. The legato, I have a video on this too, using some Rachmaninoff. There's legato lines marked everywhere in 3 different voices, and the hands are moving all over the keyboard. It's physically impossible to connect them, yet they're supposed to be connected, which leaves us one answer. It has to be with the pedal. The trap to not fall into when you remove the pedal is trying to build that connection that's otherwise impossible to build. Because if you do that, you're going to end up playing with your hands stuck like this a lot of the time, and then you're going to be doing weird things with your elbows in order to get the thumb to move and hold this note. And our playing isn't free, even though the body is moving a lot. It's under a lot of tension because we're trying to create that connected tone when it's otherwise impossible. So we really have to be careful of that. When we take the pedal away, we have to really know precisely where are my fingers involved in the process of creating that connection, and where is it the pedal's job? And I cannot have the two. There are some places where the two can overlap. But if the pedal is holding something and creating the connection across time for us, doing something like this is all written, I believe, under a legato marking in Chopin. It's impossible to play with finger connection. Pedal has to be used. So when you do practice, we have to put out of our mind that, forget that we're trying to make connection there. The connection doesn't happen from the fingers. Okay, good. Let's go back. Vienna, you said when you want to hear something more clear, you said clearer, more cleanly maybe. Yes. Okay, let's play devil's advocate when we're working on this Grieg and we have played it with a lot of pedal. That's not blatantly awful, but it's something I would expect to hear from a student who doesn't yet know how to use the pedal in the piece. Things are a little bit too blurry. Yeah? And what's happening is we can't actually hear what the melodic shape is and what the melodic line is. With all of the articulation marked. Tenuto, staccato, staccato, staccato. Tenuto, staccato, staccato, staccato. Slur, tenuto. There's something to do on every single one of those pitches. Practice that without pedal. Right? And then we want to say, how close can I make that happen when I add the pedal back in? But we need to hear it first. We need to get it in our ear. Great. Let's see. Lisa, you said you had your pedal adjusted because it wasn't clearing properly. That's really important. I'm glad you did. Okay. Vienna, you also said, for example, if you want to focus on just one thing in your playing, like voicing or phrasing or whatever, don't use pedal because it might hide your mistakes. Potentially, yes. I think it's a great idea to be able to pedal and not pedal and show a good phrase, given a piece that is, you can actually do that with. We're going to take a break from Grieg and go to some Chopin for a second. We're going to talk about the piece that we talked about on the last stream, actually. Okay. If you were to work on the first 4 bars and work on phrase, if we played with no pedal, we're going to hear the melodic line extremely cleanly. Great. And we can really work on phrasing that. Wonderful. However, there are a couple problems. One, right in the middle of the phrase, we have those repeated notes, which are impossible to connect legato. So all 3 of those are broken if we're not pedaling, and there's nothing we can do about it. And there's a secondary problem. So this is Chopin, like we talked about. Chopin wrote, these are his actual pedal markings. If we follow them, listen to the blur. All of those notes get blurred together. That's Chopin's intention. Going on, little blur. Then quite a lot here in this bar. Listen to all of that. That's how it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be cleaner than that. And in fact, it can't be, quote, cleaner, because if we do use less pedal, we will not be holding the left hand for the indicated durations, which truly is half notes for all of the bass. Right? It's supposed to be sustained. Let's go back to just the right hand. Now if we say, well, I need to work on my phrase and I need to work on playing this melody with a good shape and making it sing and be beautiful. Well, if you do that with no pedal, the choices that you might make might not work at all when you have to add the pedal back in. Let me give you an example. Let's start in bar 2. That's a really beautiful way to get from bar 2 into bar 3, where we move through beat 3, da, 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 and then back away. What if we do that with everything together? That doesn't work at all. It sounds so blurry. But we made that choice listening with no pedal, right? So what else are we doing wrong? We need to understand in the phrases, when the pedal is being used for a different purpose, how does the use of the pedal change the phrase that the right hand needs to make? And we can't discover that unless we use the pedal. And we can't actually practice the phrase that the right hand needs to make unless we use the pedal. So here's the difference. If I leave the left hand out, but start in bar 2 and go into bar 3, there is one way to make that clear and have the pedal down. And that's playing and with a kind of a crescendo, or having the phrase increase to the downbeat. Because as we crescendo the phrase through the pedal, as the pedal's held, we add clarity where the blur starts to occur. If we put it with both hands, keep going. Same thing here. So knowing the shape of the phrase and where we're increasing to makes it possible to play with more pedal and more of that blur. Except you can't work on it with no pedal. Because what our ears hear when we have no pedal says, oh, this is clean and this is great. And maybe what our ears hear is say, I can make this choice for the phrase, and I can make this choice for the phrase, and I can do all of these things. And then when you put it back together with both hands and the pedal, none of the choices you just made work. So, yeah, playing with pedal at the beginning, important. Trying things out without pedal in the middle, also important. But coming back and understanding when everything is really working together, using the pedal changes what the hands need to do. So the sooner we can start working on that, and the sooner we can discover the ways that how our fingers and our wrists and our arm are being changed, or that how we employ technique is being changed, the better. Because then we're going to start making those choices in practice sooner, and it's going to be less rewriting, the motions and the movements and what we've heard in practice. Hey, thanks, Bjorn. I appreciate that. Okay, Isabelle, you said, as you never used pedal, can you explain why and how pedal can hide mistakes? Sure. We'll use a passage from something else. And yeah, I know we won't have an all pedal stream, although it's a great topic. We'll get into some other things soon here. Okay. This is something from the Errant Sonata. Hey, Tom. Welcome. I'm going to use this passage that looks like it's all in kind of Q notes. They're all small notes, and it's an unmetered bar that starts in the A tempo and it continues. It's all written as just one bar of music. It's incredibly fast. I can use this as a great demonstration because I haven't practiced it in a while. So, okay, there are a lot of notes that are happening here, and we want all of them to be in the right place at the right time with the right intention and the right dynamic. If I put the pedal down and I play, okay. That was okay. I could have fooled a lot of people with that, but if you really know the piece, there were a ton of notes that were missing, and there were a ton of notes that were misstruck, that were the wrong dynamic. Probably 20 or 30, which over the duration of this, maybe that's a small number percent-wise, but it's a lot of notes. And pedal covered it all up and made it all sound great. Okay, so if I wanted to really work on that, I could make two choices. One, I could just slow down far enough and still use the pedal and articulate every note. Not like that. That was wrong. Or I could do that without pedal, so I can really hear. Is every note F natural? Is every note right where it's supposed to be? I can really hear that if I'm not using the pedal. And then maybe I can start to add pedal back in, slowly still. And then I can try it out back at tempo. It's probably not fixed, but... Only a couple were still missing, just from a couple repetitions of practice, where I really honed in on every single note across that entire thing. And I think if you went back and you listened to the two, you'd hear the first one after hearing the second one. You'd go back and hear the first one and say, oh, it was a little cloudy, a little murky. And the second one was really clear, and you could really hear every phrase go right up to the top. And it was all connected. So I can hear that because I've practiced the piece a lot. I know the piece extremely well, and I've played for a really long time. When I started, I could hear that in the first repetition I did, and I knew it was bad. Sometimes when we're working on something, we can't always understand. We don't always hear if we're not that attuned to every tiny little minute detail. And so it can be a great idea to take the pedal away, because then it's going to be really obvious. What did I miss? But then again, just keep the pedal away so that we can work on it a little bit. When you add the pedal back in, make sure that you change how you practice the passage so that you're still listening for and hearing the clarity of articulation in this case, even though the pedal's back in use, and then slowly go back. Faze, you asked, what piece was this again? This is the Sonata in B-flat minor by Paul Errant. I have a live recording of it from my senior recital in my undergrad on YouTube. I also have a studio recording of the whole piece. It's about 30 minutes long, and it was on my first album. It's a really cool piece. Yeah, you can check it out. There are only a couple people that play it. There's a professor at Cleveland Institute of Music, I believe she's at, Daria Robotkina, who currently plays and tours with that piece. I think she's the only person in the world right now that has the piece in her fingers. I used to. I don't anymore. But it's a really cool piece. Yeah, Vienna, it does look a lot like the Rachmaninoff Second Sonata. Yeah. Okay. Isabelle, do you have any other questions? We spent quite a lot of time on the pedaling thing, but I'm so passionate about that topic. And yeah, you're not the only student that I've heard whose teacher kind of forbids pedal from being used. And it's something that I end up working on with a lot of my students, adding it in sooner rather than later. And then the difficulty for me as the teacher is then, okay, all of the little things that go wrong that would have been easy to just make sound good if we didn't use pedal, now we've got to talk about all those. So my job is harder on purpose because you're going to be the better musician if you start adding pedal sooner rather than later. Isabelle, let us know if you've got any other questions. Anybody else? Do you have any questions about anything that we just talked about? It's been an hour since we heard Isabelle, but can we give her another round of applause? Thanks so much for sharing. Thanks for being brave and sending in your first video for us here. We would love to hear you play again. It was quite nice, Isabelle. You've done great work. Keep it up. All right. Moving on. What else would we like to talk about today? The stream is your oyster. Ted, you say on the piece you've been working on, you're having issues playing octave chords evenly in between regular octaves, especially when they start on a black key. You feel like you always hit white notes too late. Okay. Hey, Restless Guitar. Ted. So I'm assuming maybe it's chords that you're working on that are like this D major chord maybe, where you have an octave, but then the white keys in between are maybe being played like that, where they're coming in late. Is that the problem, Ted? Or something like that? And if you do have, if you could let us know what the piece is, I might be able to look it up and we can talk about the specifics. Okay. Yeah, Restless Guitar. I will go, talk a little bit more about Tenuto. And Phase, you said all the pedal on maybe like pedal videos on YouTube choose the worst reverb. And everybody answer Vienna's question. Vienna asked, "What's your favorite Beethoven sonata?" To everyone. And Peaky Blinders is back. Hey. Okay, Ted. First, let's diagnose the reason why the white keys are late. Do you know the reason why, Ted? You hear it, that's good. But why are they sounding later than the black keys? Why aren't they together? Anybody else too? When you have a chord like that, or this one, or why would the white keys sound after the octave and not together? And Lori, I see your question about repertoire. We'll come back to that. Yeah. Nancy says you need a firm bridge. Okay. That is really important. And you're right, Nancy. Restless Guitar said initial positioning is not in sync. Okay. Let me see. I do not know this, but Ted, thanks for putting the piece in the chat for us. Prelude Opus 10 by Mel Boris. Is it Mel Bonis? Bonis instead of Melanie Boris? Let me keep looking. 10. I am not finding that piece of music in a Google search. So, Ted, I'm going to do my best to just talk you through the chords in isolation. But if you did want to, you could always send me an email with the score. We could always talk about it again if you'd like to. My email address is actually in the description of the video down below. Okay, let's see. Do we have any other comments about... Here we go. Initial positioning. Oh, and then we talked a little bit about tenuto. Okay, so there were no more comments about why these may be out of sync. Let's think about the relationship between the keys themselves physically. The black keys sit higher, and even when they're depressed, the lowest position of the key sits higher than the white keys. So it's understandable that the black keys might sound first if because they're going to reach, if we think about the keys, if we are mistakenly thinking about the keys as all being even, then we have further to go to get down to the bottom to where the key strikes, the bottom of the key bed of the white keys, than we do of the black keys. From where the wrist is, if you think about that, right? So from where the wrist is, there's less drop into the black keys, there's more into the white keys. So if we realize that first, we can start to think about how are we aiming for some of the notes that are in the chord? And instead of aiming for the octave, can we try aiming for some of the notes that are sounding, we'll just pick one of the notes that's sounding late. So in this case, we have an F sharp, A, D, F sharp. Why don't we try aiming for the fourth finger, because it's probably not as independent of a finger, and it's on a white key, so it's further away from the wrist. The struck position, or the key bed, is further away from the wrist to begin with. So I want to aim to play the D first. So I'm breaking the chord. I'm breaking it on purpose, but it's broken where that note happens first, and then the rest of the chord. Good. Can you do the same thing then with second finger? Now let's try to aim for 2 and 4 together and let the octave be wherever it wants to be. I tend to find when you go through that and you aim for one of the white keys and then the other one, or however many you have. And then you just say, okay, I'm going to aim for the middle of the chord, not the octave. And we play everything together. It tends to come together. There's also the potential that, Ted, when you're playing these chords, you might be using a wrist movement like this. If your wrist is going up as you play, like that, it's actually more difficult to play the four notes in at the same time, simultaneously. Why? Because if we do this and we let the hand extend and pull the wrist up, you can see some fingers are longer than others. The fingers that are longer than others are going to be the ones that they actually tend to play first, not late. So, Ted, maybe you aren't doing this, but the problem I would expect to hear if you were pushing the wrist up is that it would be the white keys first and the black keys second, like that. So we want to be sure that we're not pushing, at least not right away. So you could think about kind of pulling the sound out of the keys. So that upper wrist movement is just a preparation before dropping in. Yeah? Okay. Ted, I would try out those couple things. So giving an accent and aiming for the pitches that tend to be late, the white keys that tend to be late, and starting to practice. It's like swinging the pendulum, right? The black keys, the octaves have always been early, and the white keys have always been late. Well, let's do the opposite. Let's make the white keys early and the black keys late, and let's learn what that feels like. And then when we let go of that practice, we're going to hope, I guess, but probably what's going to happen is that we have been practicing now two different articulations that are going to pull us in opposite directions, and they should bring us back to the middle, which is where we want to be, with all of the notes landing simultaneously. Okay. Ted, if you've got any follow-up questions, let me know. Let's talk about let's talk about there's a lot of good questions here. So we had a question about tenuto first, so we're going to talk about that, and then I'm going to try to go to Lori's question about repertoire, tenuto, repertoire, and then Peaky Blinders asked about the musicianship thing that I'm working on with ABRSM. I can talk a little bit about that. And then some sheep may safely graze. I love that transcription. I definitely want to talk about that. Okay. Tenuto is first. What is tenuto? What is the Latin root of tenuto? Does anyone know this? Or do you know the actual translation of the Italian? C Drive says to hold. Vienna, like sustained or something. Let's see. The Italian literally translates to held. The original Latin is, I believe, tenere, Tenere, which also means to hold. I think because of the translation, that might lead to a couple misconceptions about what the marking really means. Tenuto is it's like a small accent, but it's more complex than just with dynamic. In fact, the accent that we give, an emphasis that we give via a tenuto mark might not have any dynamic change, but it will be emphasized. I think of tenuto, whenever I see tenuto in a piece, I think of it as, first and foremost, a difference in the way we attack the note itself. That when we are playing tenuto, it's a softer attack, a slower attack, which is the opposite of an accent mark. If an accent is that and it's forceful, tenuto is more of a press. And so whenever I see tenuto, I immediately think, I want to make it warm. I want to caress the note. I want to make it sing, but in a tender kind of way. And so my physical approach to playing it changes, where I often try to play a tenuto with more of the pad of the finger, and even sometimes pulling on the key to try to bring out as much warmth as I possibly can, as opposed to the other way, which was more curved and precise. Of course, that's louder, but that's with the fingertip. The fingertip is bony, right? There isn't as much cushion. If we think about it in terms of physics, there's a lot of efficient energy transfer in this motion. This is, I'm purposefully manipulating my technique to lose energy and pull the sound out of the piano. Let's go back to the Grieg that we worked on, because there were tenuto marks in that piece. Just by how I play it. If I don't even put the score on the screen, can you tell me which notes are tenuto? Probably, because you see what I'm doing as I physically play the line, and you're also hearing what's happening with those notes as I'm singing them through the piano. The first note of the phrase is tenuto, and then not, tenuto, not, and tenuto. Almost, you almost got it, Vienna. It was the last E, not F sharp. E, A, E. Yeah. And in order to make that warmth happen and give the emphasis and hold the note that I'd like, the way I'd like to, there ends up being a small, almost like a Agogic accent. Agogic is with time. And that little bit of time, I think, is also really important. The time, where does the time happen? Yes, Nancy, tenuto is marked with a horizontal line. So we have tenuto. I'll put it in red for us since the other markings here are in blue. Tenuto, tenuto, and tenuto. Depending on the part of the phrase that the tenuto occurred in, sometimes the note was held as it was sustained. But I think it's important to note that tenuto doesn't always mean hold for longer. It definitely doesn't just mean hold the note for the duration of it, of the mark, of the duration of the rhythm printed. I hear that often. It doesn't mean that. The first two in this piece, because they're leading us into a line, the hold was on the beat and it extended from the pitch forward. So I didn't push forward, I held into the future. However, the last one, the hold actually happened early. So, let's see. Yes, Isabelle, tenuto. It's like an accent. Think of it as an accent of expression. Yes, Vienna, you said it's like an emphasis. It's an emphasis. And there should be enough weight, that we play with enough weight that the tone projects, but it's not a sideways caret accent. It's not a marcato, which is a vertical caret, which is really, really strong and percussive. It's I think of it as a very warm accent that includes some manipulation of time. That manipulation of time can come before the pitch or after the pitch. Okay. If we have more questions on tenuto, go ahead and ask. Okay, let's move on. But we need to come back to tenuto. I think that was... Oh, thanks, Vienna, for the carrot. Oh, good. Let's see. Next up, Lori, you had that question on intermediate classical pieces between Clementi and your first proper pieces by Mozart, Haydn, etc. So like Kuhlau or others. Yeah. Lori, Kuhlau sonatinas are great. They're great to prepare us for Mozart. Let's look for a couple more things. Some of the short Beethoven sonatas would be great. What? I can never remember the opus numbers and the sonata numbers. Opus 49. Well, that's totally on the wrong page. Oh, 231. I was on the wrong page. Oh, yeah. Opus 49, number 2. Great. That's a great piece. You don't have to reach that tempo, Lori. That would get you into some Beethoven. You can also look at Beethoven bagatelles because you're going to be able to play a number of them, and they're much shorter. Any of the opuses, there should be selections in any of the opuses for you, so you can listen through those and see if you have ones that you really, really enjoy. Another favorite piece of mine, Mendelssohn's Opus 19, number 1, Song Without Words. For kind of mid-late classical. I love that piece. Bjorn, you say, is Mozart's fantasy, D minor fantasy, underrated? I don't know. Why would it be underrated? I think it's a cool piece. And by the way, Bjorn, that's a great piece to bring up, given our current discussion. Because, Lori, this would be a great Mozart piece that you could absolutely start tackling. we'll jump to one of the other themes. Yeah. Oh, Bjorn, you're currently studying. Great. No, I don't. Oh, I don't think it's underrated. I think it's a really beautiful piece that takes. It can take you in a lot of different places in just one work, which we don't always get with Mozart. So, Laurie, that would be a great piece because of the tempo, especially through most of the piece. The tempo is low enough that it's definitely doable Mozart. For an intermediate level. There are a couple bars that have some very fast runs, and you just take them as they come. They only happen twice. Laurie, Kuhlau is just other than Mozart, Kuhlau is just great. Let's see. Laura, you can also check out Diabelli. There'll be a number of sonatinas that could work. That gives you a lot of choices, truly. So I think that would put you on a good path for classical period repertoire. And Laurie, look up some of the syllabus recommendations for intermediate repertoire from Mozart and Beethoven, because there are some. It doesn't have to be, those composers are, we think of them as having written such great works and big works, aspirational ones. But there's also a lot of pedagogical writing that they did. So definitely take a look at some of the exam board lists, because they'll give you some great ideas of places to look, even from those composers. Yes. Vienna said when they first heard Mozart, they were convinced it wasn't Mozart. Yeah, it's quite emotional. Oh, Peaky Blinders, you said Venetian Boat Song by Mendelssohn. Well, which one? I'll play a little bit of the Opus 19. It's also a great choice. Not scalar at all, but great choice. That's a great piece. Yes. Good. Vienna, you wanted some recommendation for pieces because you have no pieces right now. Well, goodness. Based on what I've heard you play, Vienna, have you played Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata? If you haven't, I think that would be good. Have you played... have you worked on Chopin's fourth? I believe it's Opus 10, number 4. Sorry, Opus 10, number 3, not 4. Okay. Okay, you played a little Pathetique. Finish learning the piece. Learn the whole thing, all 3 movements. And yeah, Chopin's third etude. Great. And something, maybe one of the Debussy preludes. Yeah, Vienna 4 isn't that hard. Oh, you said the Fifth Sonata by Beethoven? Oh, yeah. Vienna, have you learned all of the Fifth Sonata? It's a great sonata. A nice one as a precursor to the Pathetique. Whoop, let's try that again. Cool piece. Okay. Vienna, I think those are good suggestions for you. Beethoven Pathetique, Chopin number 3, Opus 10 number 3, and one of the Debussy preludes. Just that'll get you working in 3 really, really different eras and in 3 really different directions. And I'm only avoiding Bach because the last thing that I heard you play was Bach. So. Okay, Peaky. Yes, thanks for thanks for posting your question again. About the musicianship course. So, first of all, it's by ABRSM, not RCM. So if you're looking for information on the new, I believe they're calling it Creative Musicianship qualification, that's by ABRSM. And there are many, many videos that are coming out on their channel, but there's an entire... Hey, Vienna. Bye. There's an entire back end that's going to be available if you sign up. I don't think the portal to sign up is open yet, but it's not exactly a course. There are 3 components. There are kind of 3 directions of study. And the one that I have been heavily involved in is called Composing for Notation, which is basically the classical portion of the creative musicianship qualification. And so videos that I made for them, I made 12. They covered everything from basics about rhythm to not like what is rhythm, not what is a half note or a whole note, etc., but how does rhythm change how we feel about things? How do small changes in rhythm make a difference in a piece that we might be composing? I did a video. It's too bad it's not public, but I did a video talking about writing variations and how we can take a theme that we write and all sorts of different tools we can use to develop that theme. And in the video, instead of writing something of my own, I took an unfinished snippet of Chopin. I believe I took a Chopin waltz. It was like 4 bars. Only 4 bars exist. And I said, let's break that down and let's talk about, well, here's the components of it. And here are lots of ways we could write variations around that. That's a really cool video. All the way to videos on, I think there were 4 or 5 I did for them on orchestration, writing for large ensemble, writing for sections of strings and horns, etc. So it's a gamut of stuff. And Frederick Weiner also worked on videos for them in the composing for notation portion. I saw one of his using a pentatonic scale in composition. He did another one on transcription. Okay, that's one piece, composing for notation. And it will be an exam. And the supplemental material that I worked on for them is it's kind of to broaden your ways of thinking about it. It's not to teach you how to compose, although there are things in there that's information, knowledge type stuff. Much more of it is because of what we just talked about. How does it change how you think about writing music, and how does it change how you listen to music? So it's more of that. And so it will be an exam. There are requirements that you have to fulfill. And I believe they're calling it entry level and level 1. Those are going to be the first 2 that become available in September is their plan. And in order to pass the exam, I think you have to, all of that's public, but basically you have to compose 1 or 2 pieces of music according to a syllabus of, you have to include X, Y, and Z in your composition. It needs to be, for example, 30 seconds to a minute long. It needs to include 2 voices working simultaneously. That would be for the most basic level. And then things build in complexity from there. It needs to include a certain type of cadence, or it needs to include the development of a motif in a certain way. I think that's really, really great stuff that they're doing. Just encouraging more people to get involved with composition, because not only, it doesn't have to mean that you have to compose, but it totally changes the way you think about music by others that you play. So I think it's really awesome. And then there's 2 other components, 2 other tiers, we'll call them that, 2 other paths that you can walk in the creative musicianship qualification. One is songwriting. So if you're really into that, and it focuses on kind of one instrument and lyrics. And then there's another path in music production that focuses on how to use DAW, how to build out sounds, how to use different layers and different sample libraries on a computer. And so it's great that they're also tackling these things in 3 different genres as well. Yeah. So if you want more information about that, you can go to ABRSM's website, and I'm sure you can find it, Creative Musicianship Qualification. You can also go to their YouTube channel and see the 2 videos that I've done for them that they have put out publicly. They are living over there. Piki, I don't know Wonder Keys method books, so I can't really comment on them. All right. I want to be sure. I'm going back through my list and seeing about some other questions. Zayday Let's look at some Bach. So you wanted tips for making the melody sing, maybe especially where the soprano comes in, but I'll just give us a little lead in. So, yeah. Nice intro, and now we have the true melody that comes in here. You said specifically bars 11 and 12. I wonder if that's where I just got to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 9, 10. Here's 11. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Great. Zayde, take your time. So, of course, I would start the process by simply playing that melodic line because it's buried in the middle of everything else the right hand is doing. So just make sure that you know what the pitches are. What we're looking for is da, 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 da. So we, at least our ear knows what that sounds like. Now, you can set yourself up by, hey, it's a tenuto mark. Really play that one out at the beginning of the bar and really diminish the dynamic of the accompanimental figure next. So it's very quiet. Now, the hard part, this next pitch, is probably the hardest of the bar. So take a really slow tempo. Maybe even take that note by itself as you approach beat 2. So everything, different dynamic levels, and then where do you want that note to live in the phrase? Now, can we add it back together? How do you need to change the position, probably of your wrist and fingers, hand, so that you can more easily bring out second finger? So we're building this step by step, making sure that our ear knows what to listen for first. And now we're tackling how do we do the technical thing of bringing that note out. Okay, so first you can do something that we talk about here often, which is break the melodic tone, the tone you want to voice up, break that away in time from everything else. So play the melody first. Here it comes. Okay. And you could take that one chord at a time as well. So just allowing the rest of the accompaniment to be second. Then as you start to bring this back together, have all of the pitches line up in time. Do you start to feel how if we really want to be sure we're projecting second finger, how is the position of the hand changed here from the previous beat? This position. And you can even see it if I compare neutral, where the palm is flat, the hand is relaxed, this is more like if I was just playing the top note as melody, it'd be in this position. Right? But if I want to bring out 2, instead of trying to do it from this position, which is really, really hard, I'm going to use a higher wrist because it's going to help push second finger into the key. And so my alignment, I'm purposely shifting things to a different alignment to be able to emphasize second finger more easily. If I show you above, normally we would be like this, and I'm shifting over this way. So the hand is really standing on top of second finger. So. Repeats. Yeah. So start by giving yourself the pitches to listen for, so your ear is really cued into that. Then you can use that breaking apart in time just to understand a little bit more about those notes that we want to bring out. Yeah. And then look for that difference in hand position. Yeah. Good. Great question, Zayde. It's a lovely, lovely piece. I first heard it. I was listening to competitors at the Bösendorfer International Piano Competition, and one of them that I became friends with after the competition was over sat down and played her semifinal round and began it with that piece. Hey, Ricardo. Yeah. Hey, let's see. Restless Guitar. You said dynamics on piano are related to the speed of the key, but you find it quite hard to think about speed. Okay, trying to control speed, and it's easier to think about weight. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Let's think about dynamics and color are really related. And weight and speed are related. You can play forte with a slow speed. That's still forte. You can also play forte with a faster speed. And the difference is in the color of the sound. Yeah? The faster the attack, the more acceleration is happening as the hammer arrives at the string. The slower the attack, the less acceleration is happening. So the velocity, we talk about velocity when we talk about like MIDI keyboards and other things, other technology, and how, you know, dynamic is measured by velocity. And it even is at the piano, right? Because the velocity when the hammer hits the string, that's the dynamic we get. However, it changes depending on how much the hammer is accelerating toward the string. So we get a brighter color if there's a lot of acceleration, and we get a darker color if there's less, even though the velocity at the point of impact might be the same between the two. So if you're trying to think about dynamic and playing with weight, that's great. Weight and dropping into the keys tends to produce a darker tone, and it's a really nice and beautiful tone. But I would think about, I wouldn't think about speed or controlling speed. You can think about weight, and you could think about color. And let's see, let's continue on with forte. So if you're trying to play forte, How many different ways, if you just take a chord, how many different ways can you create forte? How many different gestures can you use to create forte? Can we drop from maybe the shoulders down? And can we still play forte? Great. Can we maybe push through the keys and still play forte? Can we use more of the back and engage and play forte? And if we focus on the lower back and channeling energy from there, how does it change what our arms do? Can we think about playing forte with more of a percussive motion, like you're striking a bell? So. You could experiment with just one chord and one dynamic and start to think about all of the different ways that we use the body to create that dynamic. And then what are all the different colors that we get out of that? I think that could be a cool thing to experiment with. And you can do the same exercise with other dynamics as well. Piano, how as we lean in different directions, as we move through the key vertically, absolutely straight down versus at an angle, how does it change? How does it change the color? And how does it change our perceived ease in achieving that dynamic? Restless guitar, I hope where I went is helpful for you. Okay. I don't know if I got to everyone's questions or not. I may have missed something from a little bit back. Maybe not, though. Oh, I think I only missed Vienna's question, but she's not here anymore. Okay. I think we're going to call it a day then. Okay? Isabelle, if you're still here, thanks for being here, and thanks for playing some Grieg for us today. And everybody else, thanks for tuning in, checking out Isabelle's playing. Thanks for some great questions. Hey, remember, I do live events like this in my group, Next Level Pianist Academy. We meet 8+ times a month on Zoom, and there's tons of opportunities. There's a link down below in the description to that group if you want to check it out. And our next stream here will be in 2 weeks. And if you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please hit the thumbs up button. And I'll see you next time in 2 weeks or in the comments around YouTube, okay? Practice smart and hard. And most of all, enjoy the music that you're working on. Make it beautiful. All right, everybody. Take care. Have a great rest of your week. And I'll see you when I see you, hopefully in a couple weeks. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.